welcome back to Zilog and Moto. With the college football season recently behind us, well, at least recently when this review was conceived, I thought it would be a good idea to take a look at our first sports game. And for those of you paying attention and scratching your head, no, pro wrestling does not count as a sports title. And I say that as someone who's watched his fair share of wrestling for the last 30 years or so. So there's a few choices I could have made for this, but going forward, even though I'll be jumping around from system to system and genre to genre, anytime I get to a series of games, I'm going to start with the first game in that series. Just so that as we go along, I can compare and contrast the later entries to the previous entries in the series and see where things have improved or fallen apart, as the case may be. Exhibit A. Having said all that, today we're going to take a look at Bill Walsh College Football, the first college football game released for the Genesis. Let's take a closer look. As you can see, the game comes in one of the second generation Electronic Arts thick clamshell cases. And I've actually got a bit of dust on there I probably should be cleaning off. But anyway, these are a little bit thicker than your standard Genesis clamshell. And I say second generation because the original series of EA titles for the Genesis actually came in cardboard boxes. I believe this was due to EA trying to spend as little as money as a Sega licensed developer as possible, so they used their own case as cartridges their first few years producing games for the system. When we open up the game, we get something a little bit unusual. Let's take a look here. As you can see, you've got the usual original old school Electronic Arts yellow tab cartridge. So of course you get the user manual, which is right here. Pretty thick, got a lot of stuff going on there. But then you also get this series of double-sided cards. And so I see this one here for College Station, Michigan, Washington, and then like I said, they're double-sided. So say this one's got two Washingtons on it, Washington 91 and then Washington 92. So each of these is for a different team, and there's 24 of these in total. And the reason for that is these cards have the player information for each of the teams. So I'm going to pull this one back out. So try to get a little close up there. Sorry, I know that's still probably a little bit fuzzy. But anyway, each of these has the various stats for the players on the teams, so that you don't have to just rely on the in-game generic team position ratings. You can actually see how the players are rated in a few different categories from 1 to 15. This is a nice feature, as they hadn't quite added this to the game itself. Well, unfortunately, cards aren't really in any kind of order. You can kind of see like this one here. So this one's got Atlanta 90 on one side and Baton Rouge on the other side. So you would think that they're kind of in alphabetical order, but not really. At least I don't think so. I mean, I know I'm pretty certain I looked at some of these and they were kind of wild what two teams were on each side. And of course, yeah, like see right here. So this one's got Pitt on one side and Syracuse on the other. And, you know, Pitt and Syracuse are kind of close in the alphabet, but, you know, not really. Anyway, so sometimes if you do have to kind of play go fish a little bit, trying to find the team that you're looking for. So as you can see, this is a actual full complete copy of the game, not just one that has the manual. So I've got, you know, I got the manual, got the cards, actually got the original registration card, and this nice poster that came with it that of course and I'm not really going to be able to get this in this shot here, but basically it's a poster for EA Sports here. And then on the other side is advertisements for games that are coming out and their hint line, because hint lines used to be a big deal back then. So it's kind of cool that I've got the full thing there. I'll start to put that back together a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, for a little bit more about the hint line. For those of you that weren't around in those pre-internet days, hint lines were a big additional revenue stream because you couldn't go to GameFAQs and look up codes and strategies for the games you're stuck on. Pretty much, if you were stuck, you were stuck. And unless there was something like a Nintendo Power or some sort of walkthrough and like maybe GamePro or something, you were in trouble unless maybe you knew someone that had played the game before and knew what you're supposed to do. So yeah, this copy of Bill Walsh is actually a bit of an anomaly for me. I mean, usually I consider a complete, even though it's not technically complete, a game as long as it's got the full case, the original cover, and the cartridge, obviously, and the manual. Having the rest of the stuff is nice, but as long as I get the manual, that's all I really care about. And that's, as I go through and collect all these games, that's what I'm really looking for is, case, cover, cartridge, manual. One thing I did thought that was interesting when I was reading the manual to prep for this review was the 6-page mini biography of Bill Walsh that was included. It's kind of weird. So yeah, starting here, there's a full 6 pages, just wall of text in here about Bill Walsh, which I guess is kind of nice because not everyone's going to know who Bill Walsh was, as opposed to, say, John Madden. But that's it's interesting. You don't usually get biographies in a manual on how to play the game. I did think this was nice here. It's kind of, this shows where all the teams are at with their sort of default colors. And this is important for later on, knowing where these cities are located, because maybe off the top of your head you don't know where South Bend is, or maybe you don't know where Pullman is, that sort of thing. And we'll get to explaining that later. And with that tidbit, let's start taking a look at the game itself. The game looks like John Madden football, specifically John Madden 92, for a very good reason. It's essentially a clone of John Madden 92, or perhaps 93. I'm not sure how much the development team shared resources, with college teams and Bill Walsh replacing John Madden. So if you like the early Madden titles, and you like college football, you should probably pay attention. And anyone else, you can tune out and go do something more fruitful with your time. Like John Madden 92, Bill Walsh College Football features essentially 2 game modes, Exhibition and a 16-team single-elimination tournament to win some sort of mythical championship. Now technically, Bill Walsh College Football offers 2 tournaments, one that is open to a list of 24 current, aka 1992 season college football teams, and one that is open to 24 all-time great teams, featuring what was, in the developer's opinion, the best 24 teams from 1978 to 1991. Not having an actual season mode hurts Bill Walsh College Football, just like it hurt Madden before it, but it was the only college football game available for the Genesis for about a year, until Sega's own College Football's National Championship was released, so it could afford to not be perfect. And Madden was such a strong platform at the time on the system that just being based on it was enough to move some copies. Once you come to grips that all you can really do with the game is either practice against the computer in exhibition matches, attempt to work your way through the 2 tournaments, or waste hours playing against or with your friends, you can get into the meat of the game. And also, yes, I did say friends, plural there, because Bill Walsh College Football was one of the first games to be released by EA that supported their 4-player controller adapter that allowed you to plug in 2 more controllers to your Genesis. Unfortunately, I don't own one currently, or else I would have showed it off in the box section. Maybe eventually I'll do a separate accessory video or something. When you start to play the game, you'll notice that it's set up sort of like watching a TV broadcast of a game, starting out in the studio and allowing you to get insight for the matchup from Bill Walsh himself, get a ratings comparison of the two teams to see how they stack up on average by position, check on other games that are taking place if you're in a tournament, and also change your audibles on offense and defense if you would like to do something different than what's programmed by default. The game's studio presentation doesn't mention the EASN, Electronic Arts Sports Network, that was in other games of the time, but it still does show Ron Barr, the face of EASN, and an actual sports broadcaster in real life. I've got a feeling that ESPN's lawyers probably told EA to knock it off, but I certainly don't know that for sure. Once the game starts, if you've played John Madden 92 or 93, you know exactly what to expect, as the game is practically a carbon copy of those titles. If you haven't, I'll try to explain. Each team has a playbook of plays split up by offensive or defensive formation, and each of the plays are individually named with small pictures detailing what is designed to happen on the play. Now here's where things change up a little bit. In those Madden titles I mentioned, you would first choose the formation using A, B, or C, and then once the formation is picked, all the plays that you can cycle through are from that formation. And if you change your mind about the formation, you have to go back to the formation menu and pick again. Also, each page of the playbook has 3 plays to be chosen with A, B, or C. Bill Walsh College Football changes things up here, and I don't think for the better. In Bill Walsh, no longer do you have that initial choice of formation. Instead, the player is presented with one large playbook with pages of plays for you to scroll through to pick your play. The pages are notated on the left side with a letter, so you know which formation section you're in. But say if you're on defense and you need to change from a 4-3 formation play to a dime formation play, you have to scroll through the list to get from the beginning of the playbook to the end, losing valuable time when in Madden all you have to do is simply hit a button to choose dime rather than 4-3. This may not seem like much, but when on defense, you have to be quick when choosing a play. Missing those few seconds can lead to the offense being ready to go before you are, and you may be stuck running a play you didn't choose in the formation you were in the selection of, or calling an audible. Bill Walsh does allow 4 plays on a line of plays in the playbook now, rather than the previous 3, which is nice because it allows you to see more choices at once, but I don't feel like that reorganization of the list of plays required changing how you navigate the playbook. The actual play of the game is pretty straightforward. Each team has a full assortment of 11 players per side, and you play the game using a vertical approach to the field, with the offense attempting to go to the top of the screen and the defense doing everything it can to keep the offense in the bottom. The game is a somewhat realistic vision of college football, with players on offense being able to hurdle or spin away from defenders, and players on defense attempting to sack the quarterback, trying to cause fumbles or intercept passes. The skill of the players in the game vary wildly, which is why it's helpful to have the original team cards to know where each team's strengths and weaknesses truly are. This is important because there are no difficulty settings in the game. The game is just how it is out of the box, although the computer AI does attempt to try and learn what you might do to be competitive during games. So if you want to make the game easier or more difficult, you would look at the player ratings and pick teams that are stronger or weaker to make competition against your opponent as challenging as you would like it. From a display perspective, the game looks pretty good for the time. The engine manages 22 on-screen characters with no problem, and the various teams have the proper coloring you expect on their uniforms. On the pre- and post-game screens, you see the stadium is filled with the colors of the home team. The player animations are decent, and you can really tell a slow-moving player from a fast one in the way a slower player appears to lumber around, while a faster player moves more like an antelope in a smooth flow across the field. Other than the lack of a full season, the game has 2 glaring issues. First, the sound in the game simply is not good. For whatever reason, I'm not sure if EA ever really figured out how to get good sound effects or music out of the Genesis. I guess I'll find out as I do these reviews, but I do know that other EA games released around this time, like Madden 92 and Road Rash, had similar bad synthy soundtracks, and Bill Walsh is right there with those. The sound effects are mediocre at best, with the referee's whistle especially sounding shrill, and not in a good way, and the crowd noise sounding, well, like noise. The second issue is that if you check the package, you'll notice the game is not in any way endorsed by the NCAA or any of the football teams that are supposed to be in the game. So you'll notice that the teams where the name of the team isn't the same as the state end up being called by the city that the team is in. For instance, in the game, Notre Dame isn't Notre Dame, they're South Bend. Penn State is State College. BYU is Provo, and so on and so on. This isn't that huge an issue, but for some of the more obscure teams, it's a distraction. I had to look up Pullman on the internet to figure out it was referring to Washington State. And if you're not a huge college football fan, some of the names may throw you as well. The game certainly plays just fine without having the official names of the teams, but winning a game against College Station just doesn't have the same feel as beating Texas A&M. All in all, I give Bill Walsh College Football a 3 out of 5. Not having a season mode really hurt it, and drug it down from a 4. Hopefully, when I get around to reviewing Bill Walsh College Football 95, some of these issues will be fixed. We shall see. And there you have it. Episode 2 is in the books. What's coming next? Well, we'll see if a historically popular board game can make the transition to the Genesis. And there's a few of them out there, so it might not be the one you would guess. Spoiler alert, this one does not get 3 stars. So remember, whatever you enjoy playing, have fun, and be excellent to each other.